evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture, joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
And today is a very special origin story episode, one that has been in the works for quite some time. This guest has single-handedly raised the bar for us when it comes to the presentation of our business to the world. And that really has grown over the years into also a staple artist that you guys all know and love, with t-shirts and posters and all sorts of fun stuff throughout the year. He does all of our banner art that you guys see and love up on the screen with the slides, and when we promote our shows online. You know him, you love him, from Kern Creative Designs, the great Andrew Kern. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, Virgil and Mark. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here.
So excited. And, you know, we've talked about this a couple times, Mark and myself, where it's like, we got to get Andrew on the podcast, and for whatever reason we slip into the off season and start focusing on the owner operator series, whatever. It just had kept getting backburnered, but the time has come.
Sweet. I'm glad you guys have finally found the bottom of the barrel as far as guests for the podcast.
Not the bottom of the barrel. It's like a barrel that is right in front of you and blocking your view, yet somehow you don't realize it's there.
Okay, great, awesome. Well, hey, whatever. That's great. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to talk with you guys. So thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Well, you know it more than maybe anybody else. The Mahoning Drive-In Theater is made up of a very unique and very eclectic cast of characters, and characters that people really do know, love, and care about. And the success here, as I mentioned in the introduction, this is a humongous group effort to continue to raise the bar every single year, take on bigger and bigger shows. And when you came into the fold, Andrew, it was just one of those seemingly perfect, destined timing situations. I don't know if you feel the same way, but why don't you let people know how you first got involved with doing graphics? From my memory, it was right around, if not the day that we got saved.
It was actually, I had known what you guys were doing for a while. I live fairly close. I'm only about a half an hour away from the drive-in. Always kind of knew it was there and never actually made the trip up. I had seen the documentary probably sometime during the COVID shutdown when all we did was sit around and watch Netflix. And I'm like, oh, I got to get up there. And when I heard that you might be bought by, or the land might be bought by the solar company, I was like, oh man, I didn't even get a chance to get there. So I wanted to do something to try to help without really knowing you guys. So I just made that quick graphic, Save the Mahoning. It was supposed to be the marquee, and I wanted to put on the marquee Save the Mahoning to just kind of help, get a graphic out there for you guys to help just show my support. And I went to double check. I wanted to put the website at the bottom. I went to double check, and I get to the website and I see this video of Virgil saying, hey, we already been saved, because it happened so quickly. So I changed what I was going to put on. Instead of saying Save the Mahoning, I changed it to Has Been Saved, and just kind of put it out there as a woohoo. I can finally actually get up there and see what you guys are doing. And then that kind of just got me on your radar, and it was
It sure did.
It was the following season that I started with you. So that was 2021, right? And then 2022 was my first season with you guys.
And again, talking about the timing and the destiny, a lot of people know we went through a huge shift in 2020, not just with the pandemic, but the business in itself made a big shift. Again, trying to carry on, continue to raise that bar, figure out how we could best approach presenting what it is that we do. And when we saw that marquee graphic, it just popped so hard, and it kind of blew all of our minds, where we're like, who is this guy? Like, this is way too good to just be, kind of tossed out there. And I remember at a certain point we connected. Was it on the lot or was it through likely social media, right?
I don't remember exactly. We met at one of the Allentown like horror cons briefly. I don't even know if you remember that. I had just approached you, and it may have even been before or after I did the graphic. It might have been right after I did the graphic. And I said, yeah, hey, I did the graphic for you guys, and we had talked for a little bit. And
Right.
so I don't know if that helped or whatever, but I think it was just somehow, you guys reached out, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to help out with some banner work. And it just kind of went from there. And I think it was initially supposed to be like 4 or 5 graphics a month is what I was told, and then it just turned into every graphic for the month. And I was
Then
I
we
was
started
happy to
doing
do
more
it.
and more shows. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because at that time we were doing just weekend shows. Like, it was just 2-day connected Friday, Saturday. We weren't even doing Sunday shows because they
Mhm.
proved not successful in 2018, 2019. So yeah, it essentially would only be 4 weekends a month, but boy, did that change.
Oh yeah. Now there's some months. I mean, this year we've been pretty solid with like Friday, Saturday, sort of under one theme, and then the Sunday. But like I think last season there were a lot of weekends where it was sometimes even a Thursday thrown in, a separate
Yeah.
Friday, separate Saturday, separate Sunday, and it was pretty crazy. But I enjoy doing it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that, I love about the quote unquote resident artists that we have here, Tom, yourself, Hayden, you guys are all three guys that I've kind of seen grow here, and not just grow in your art and your talent every single year, but your connections and your continued success in the industry. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but Andrew has, really taken off with connecting the dots with doing some really high profile poster art. And why don't you brag a little bit about some of the projects that people might have seen out there?
Well, probably my biggest one so far has been the upcoming Steamboat Willie horror movie Screamboat from Stephen Lamorte, who did the Mean One, the Grinch horror movie from a few years ago,
Yeah.
and he's connected with the Terrifier team. So some of the Terrifier producers are also producing Screamboat. So that's probably been the most like I mean that when that
Oh,
dropped
it's
in
a
Variety.
price. Yeah.
Variety, Deadline, everything. Like that was January 2nd, I think, because Steamboat Willie went into the public domain on the 1st, and we dropped that teaser poster on the 2nd, and it was just everywhere. That was kind of surreal. So that's probably that at the moment. That's my claim to fame. But I also then was able to do the cover art for the Mean One Steelbook that's coming out in December. So that's currently available for pre-order on Amazon. So go ahead. I don't receive any money from that, but go ahead and pre-order that. And then I just did Stream, which was another one from the Terrifier team. Michael Levy, who has a small part in the first Terrifier, directed Stream, and I did a series of posters for that. So those are probably the biggest ones, but I've done a number of others over the years that have, gotten released on Amazon Prime, all the streaming services, a couple Blu-ray releases. So it's been neat. It's been a lot of fun.
And Stream was in theaters recently. Didn't I see photos
Still
somewhere
is,
of
I
the
think,
actual
yeah.
poster in a poster case in a movie theater?
Yeah, they had a very limited run. It was like a week run. But Movie Tavern down in Trexlertown in Allentown was carrying it. That's where I went to see it. And that was sort of surreal, walking into a movie theater and there's my poster out in one of the light boxes out in front of the theater that I go to all the time and I take my kids to and stuff like that. So that was a neat experience. And if it's the only time I get to experience that, it was great. But I hope it's not the last that I get to see something like that.
Certainly not. So before we jump into your kind of love and history with drive-ins, let's talk about your artwork and your kind of inspiration, because the reason that, again, we all loved that marquee graphic, it was amazing. But as I go and check out your profile, whether it was Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you had already had done these really cool kind of mock IP heavy posters, like fan posters. Where were you at as far as poster creation, things like that, once you came into the fold here?
It's pretty early on because honestly, I actually my day job is I'm a high school teacher. I teach Photoshop, I teach video production, stuff like that, and I've been doing that for the last 17 years. But I did go to school initially for graphic design, so I had freelanced for a number of years. I'd worked well when I got out of college. I worked for a few years as a graphic designer. Went back for teaching because I just couldn't stand sitting in a cubicle all day, and I found corporate design to be very stifling. So went into teaching. Really enjoyed working with young people and students. And then when the pandemic hit, I had always been kind of messing around with this fan art. Like the Marvel stuff was really big at that point, and Scream, and some of the other stuff. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, you know what? I see all these other artists on Instagram. I'll just put my stuff up there. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. I just put it out there. Maybe some people will like it. Maybe 20 people will follow me, and that'll be cool. I've got nothing else going right now. I'm locked inside, and schools were closed. So I put that up, and it wasn't long into that, maybe about a month or two. Somebody, director Marcel Walls, saw my Scream artwork and said, "Hey, I have this movie. Would you design a poster for it?" And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. I'm locked inside. So designed the poster for it in a couple days, sent it to him. And then that was sort of my foot in the door for indie horror films. And then, so that was 2020. I did a few more posters through 2021. And then in 22, I started with you guys. So I was only about 2 years into sort of getting back into design as a side job. I'm still teaching now, but I do all this on nights and weekends and wherever else I can find the time, and been just kind of balancing both for the last few years. So it's really, hooking up with you guys was pretty early on in my return to, putting things out there to the world.
The timing, the destiny, as I always say, It's so surreal that, you had just started kind of planting that seed and working with the IP. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? I know that a lot of our resident artists love working with us because it gives them the opportunity to really shine on some high profile properties.
Well, my philosophy with Mahoning has always been sort of to take something old and make it look new again. Because that's what you guys are doing. You're a retro drive-in, and I just want to make sure that the banners and the artwork that gets put out puts a new twist on poster art and IPs that people have seen for decades. So I want it to be something eye-catching so that when people are scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, they stop and they look at it. But I also want it to be something that they recognize, that they've already seen. So if we're doing Ghostbusters, I want to make sure that it looks like the other stuff that already exists for Ghostbusters or for Disney or for whatever it is we're doing. So I'm always trying to I've been calling it sort of remixing the poster art in a lot of ways, and just trying to do something with it that catches your attention, reminds you of what you love about it. Because so much of what the Mahoning is about is that nostalgia and the retro IPs that, I used to love this movie when I was a kid, and this drive-in showing it, I'm going to make the 3-hour drive to go see it or something like that. So that's sort of my hope, is to get people out and get people to the lot and fall in love with the place, because it's easy to fall in love with the Mahoning. It's so much fun to be there.
Absolutely. It's one of those things, again, talking about raising the bar. I liken this whole experience here and the group of people here as like a rock band, that we all come together and work on these quote unquote songs, the programming. And once we release it into the world, finding the best way to present that and catch people's eye, especially when it doesn't get lost amongst the other slew of bands and quote unquote new music or shows that are out there. And you have such a talent for finding a way to take the gold that we've spun and present it perfectly to the masses. And people so appreciate and love it. And it, like I've said to you many times, it's created a new standard that it's hard for us to even imagine not working with you at this point.
Well, I love the job security. That's for darn sure. So, no, but I appreciate it. And honestly, I love working with people that I know appreciate what I'm doing. And one of the things I've always loved about you guys is you kind of just let me go and you trust me to make something that is going to represent the event as best as it can. And I always want to try to do right by you guys and give you something that hopefully draws a bigger crowd than it would have had you not had that banner. So
Heck yeah. Every single show, every single announcement, I get so excited because I just know there's an aspect of viral to your graphics that people
mhm.
are going to see it and be like, oh, come on, and just start
Yeah,
sharing it out there and sharing it to their stories. And that's really been kind of a huge approach for us is finding those ways to get people talking about shows and sharing the shows. And that has been such an amazing tool for us. And I gotta say, like, I appreciate you so much for saying that because, the work that we all do here it's such a team effort. And to have somebody that is such a team player on board with us and kind of willing to understand that, hey, every single show has a budget, every single show has a different approach, every single year has a different budgeting angle, and like you are really perfect with working with us to make sure we're always happy and it works out with you and you're taken care of.
yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100%.
Well, let's talk about drive-ins a little bit. I mean, I
Okay.
know you're a Mahoning drive-in fan, but do you have or were you blessed to have any history with drive-ins when you were younger?
Yeah, so like I said, I don't live too far from the Mahoning. I grew up in the Lehigh Valley. I grew up in Walnut, and I don't live too far from there now as an adult, just a little bit further away. And so I grew up with Becky's Drive-In, like 5 minutes away. I
Yeah.
grew up with Shankweiler's Drive-In 10, 15 minutes away. And then Mahoning is about 20 minutes, half an hour from Walnut. So, yeah, I grew up in this really wonderful pocket where there are three local drive-ins. As a kid, I would go mainly to Becky's and Shankweiler's, just because they were the closer ones. And I always knew Mahoning was there, but because it was the furthest, we never really trekked up that way. And yeah, I remember going to the drive-ins a lot as a kid, and that nostalgia and everything you guys talk about. I always appreciate Virgil when you're on the radio before an event and you mention, especially if it's a family night,
Yeah.
that it's important to bring out the younger generation and expose them to this because it is such a magical experience and such a family bonding event and things like that. And it's just there's something special about sitting out under the stars and watching a movie on a big screen with the people you enjoy being with. And I have those memories as a kid. I don't know if it was Shankweiler's or Becky's, but I remember I must have been like three, maybe four. I think it was E.T. and Back to the Future double feature. My
Oh,
parents took me to, and my sister was born in '85, so I think this was like summer of '85. She did not go along; she was a baby. My grandmother watched her, but I remember my parents taking me, and I just remember sitting there with them, watching those movies, sort of falling asleep in their car, watching those two movies, and I still kind of have like these vague but vivid memories of that experience. So I've been going to drive-in since, as long as I can remember.
it just becomes a part of you. And I always say, if you're lucky enough to have had it, because when you're a kid, it's just hypnotizing. And that's why I say it all the time on the radio is, I see it with your kiddos. I see it with my
Mhm.
munchkin. These kids just have the time of their lives at the drive-in, like the freedom of the drive-in. And the reason I always like to preach on the radio is also the place we're at in society in general, where it seems like every community wants to just like butt up against each other or not agree with each other. And to have a place that is very accepting to all and neighbors can come out and have a good time, like it resonates so hard with people and a certain type of person for sure that can come out and appreciate that simple aspect of it regardless of what's up on the screen.
You guys have this great vibe on the lot, and I love being up there. I mean, this season, I think I've been I think I've been averaging once a weekend. There have been some weekends I've skipped, but there's also been some weekends where I've been there like 2 nights out of the weekend. So I think it evens out. But it's just so much fun. And over the last 3 seasons, I've gotten to know so many people that are regulars to the drive-in. And it's like showing up and seeing old friends again every year and chatting with them for a little bit. And you know that everybody's there because they all have a similar interest in movies. Even if they haven't seen what we're showing that night and that's their first time experiencing it, it's so neat to talk movies and just their past experiences and stuff like that. It's really become an awesome place to just visit, and I miss it when I'm not there. I really do.
Yeah, it has this appeal and this lore to it. And I say it, like, being part of the Mahoning family, it's incredibly special, incredibly important to the people that are here. And again, going back to this kind of team mentality, you've been so perfect for us, and we can't thank you enough. Endless thank yous to you.
You're endless. You're welcomes.
Yeah, why don't we talk about some of your work? I know what I love and what the audience might love, but of the now going on several years of working with the Mahoning Drive-In, do any graphics or projects or things kind of pop to the top for you where you're like, yep, that's one crown jewel right there?
Yeah, I'm trying to. It's tough because I enjoy so many of them for different reasons. It would probably be easier for me to list the ones that I didn't like because I always try to find. And that, I know that sounds so like arrogant, like, oh, I always make wonderful work and it's always amazing. That's not how I mean it to be, but I always try to find, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's stuff for you guys or another client, I always try to find a way to excite myself for the project. How can I find something that I want to do in this, or maybe a style I haven't tried yet, or a color scheme I haven't tried yet? So I always try to make each graphic different and unique and something that I can get excited about personally, because there's so many that I have to do. And I never want to fall into this complacency where I'm just kind of, okay, yeah, there we go, click the buttons and crank it out. I always want to try to inject something special into it. But I do have to say the one that probably I put the most love into was this past season's Clue. Because Clue is my all-time favorite movie. I was so excited when you said we were finally running it, because
Yes.
I think I had asked you in our first year working together. I said, "Have you ever run Clue?" And
You
I was actually
certainly did.
and I was like, I was actually shocked you hadn't at that point, because I came in what year like 8 of you kind of turning the drive-in retro. So I was like, how have you not shown Clue in 7 years? But I guess it's sort of it's one of those like hidden gems of 80s comedies that,
Yes.
you know, I guess a lot of people don't know unless they're really into movies or something like that. You know, I guess the mainstream audience it never really clicked with. So when you said we were doing Clue this year, I made it my mission to like make sort of the ultimate Clue banner that I could try to find. And I think I put a lot more love into that one, just because some of those photos of the group, they cut off at around the waist, or I think Mr. Green is only just his head and it's a stock photo body. So I spent so much time trying to build that image because I just wanted to make it, you know, perfect for myself.
Yeah.
And then Disney was another big one this year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many people knew that I actually drew the characters that appear on there, but each one of those, I went in and did a digital vector drawing of each character. I wanted Genie holding Simba, and I wanted to try to find a way to combine the two movies that at that point we were going to be showing.
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't end up showing Lion King at the last minute, so I was a little, but I wanted to try to find ways to combine the two movies and also inject that drive-in culture to it. So like Iago's carrying like a little radio and Abu's eating popcorn, and I just wanted to do something unique and special with those characters because it was the first time we had access to the Disney Animation Vault, and I really wanted it to pop. So those two are probably highlights, but I mean, I always love Camp Blood. I always love Zombie Fest. Grindhouse was a fun one. Grady's graphic this year for Burn Witch Baby Burn.
That was fantastic. As I don't know if people noticed on that, but you have Grady being burned at the stake, and what is fueling the fire are all copies of his books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one. So we had Grady out the year before for Haunted House Party, and I didn't realize how big of a draw Grady was at that time. So when I made the graphic, I focused on Poltergeist and all the
The
haunted
movies,
house
yeah.
movies, the movies, and I just kind of ended up as almost like a regretful afterthought, just kind of tucking a picture of Grady over to the side
And this
and say, oh
guy.
yeah, oh yeah, and Grady will be here too. And after I think I started working on it, I mentioned something to my wife, who's a huge reader, reads multiple books a day. She's really into all that stuff. And I said, hey, have you ever heard of this author Grady Hendrix? And she's like, what? She like freaked out. She never gets that way with the stuff that I do. So she was super excited, and I realized, okay, when we're bringing him back this year, he's got this fan base that I don't think is the normal Mahoning audience, but
Yeah.
I think once they find the Mahoning, they're like, oh, this place clicks with me too, because his vibe is just so perfect with what we're doing at the Mahoning as well. So I'm like, I got to make this about Grady because he's the draw, because the movies are almost secondary now to the guests, and I never really do that, but it was just so much fun and I knew his sense of humor just from meeting him the year before. He'd probably be okay with tying him to a pyre and lighting, just burning him at the stake.
When I
Um,
contacted him to ask if it was okay we use his likeness on the poster and the T-shirt, his words were "exploit me."
yeah, no.
He
So yeah, I
knows.
mean they're all fun. I love every time I get a text from Virgil that says, "Here's what we're doing," and the combos you guys come up with, and the double features or the events where it's these movies you never thought of playing together, and that sometimes is so much fun and gives you a lot to work with as far as the graphic. Yeah, there's just always so much meat on the bone to work with some of these
Yeah.
events that you guys come up with, and I love the programming that you do. It just gives me so many ideas.
And
Oh, you
sometimes
bet.
the graphics are not solely used as our advertising on our Facebook page, event page, and for Instagram and for the Ticket Leap page, but sometimes they wind up being the event poster for that weekend too. Or you reconfigure them so that we can have them printed and be movie posters in our light boxes. So for anybody who isn't familiar with your work, if they come to the theater, they may see it physically or be able to take it home physically in some cases.
Yeah, a lot of the times for the bigger events, I try to, like you said, rework them and reformat them a little bit so that they're, instead of being the horizontal sort of widescreen banner for that fits so well up on the screen before the show and during intermissions, I try to do something where it's a little bit more poster-like to give people something different than what already exists online and it's been passed around, through social media.
Yeah, for me, that Waltz Vault t-shirt, absolute gold. Last year, that Scream t-shirt. I see so many people wearing that Scream t-shirt. People love that shirt. So every time we get you, it's just such a blast. So drive-ins, clearly an inspiration on you and your childhood when you were younger. Did you have that same type of rabid sense and love of movies when you were younger that we did, going to indoor houses or drive-ins?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, movies, I've never been like a sports person or anything like that. Movies have always been my thing, and particularly movie marketing too. I sort of realized as I was kind of getting into college, like I'm really into the poster art
Yeah.
and into trailers and stuff like that because they're just such a unique art form to themselves. And the thing that I love about doing a movie poster, whether it's for you guys or for a client for an actual like independent movie, is there's more storytelling going on in a movie poster than other forms of art. The movie poster should introduce you to the characters, who's your protagonist, who's your antagonist. It should introduce you to a little bit of the setting. It should give you a sense of a little bit of the plot, a little hint toward the plot. So there's so much story that goes into this one image. And that's always what I loved about it. The one that I always think of, and my brain always goes back to, are Drew Struzan's 3 Back to the Future posters. I think
Nice.
those were the first ones as a kid that I remember looking at and just loving the way he kind of built on it's Marty on part 1, it's Doc and Marty for part 2, and then for part 3 you have the 3 characters with Clara, and each one has subtle differences too. Like the first one is a road, the second one the car, the DeLorean's hovering, the third one it's on train tracks, and there's so much story contained in those 3 images, and I don't think the average person looking at it realizes how much those images tell you about the movie and give you a sense of the tone and the mood and all that. So I always try to pull something of that into everything I do, whether it's an actual poster that's original to a new movie that's coming out, or to the banners for the Mahoning, is to just remind people of what they love about the movie and the story itself. And you don't get that with other types of marketing and art, because like when I used to work in the corporate world, you didn't have that storytelling aspect to it. It was just
Singular.
make clean corporate looking logo on white background and make it minimalistic and make it, and that has its place. I'm not knocking people that do that, but it was just never my thing. It was never something that I really clicked with. And it took me a while to sort of find this niche for myself and start to enjoy that and find avenues to actually use that in a way. Because for so many years, especially when I was in corporate design, I felt like, oh man, is this all my life is going to be, is just designing promotional posters to get your flu shot or something like that, and nothing wrong with that. You should get your flu shot. But like, that wasn't the thing that always hooked me. And I always loved movies as a kid, and it's been mind blowing. And I want to thank you guys. If I've never actually said this to you before, I want to say it now, for all the opportunities to experience these movies again, sometimes for the first time on a big screen, but also when you guys bring out like a guest.
Yeah.
Like this year's Camp Blood was insane. Like at one point I walked past Adrienne King as she's sitting at one of the picnic tables having a burger with just some random fan. And like that situation is just so like, I grew up watching these movies, and now here's the person from that movie, and I got to meet her and talk to her, and she's hanging out on the lot as we're all watching this movie. And it's just like the connections, like you said earlier, that I've been able to make have been kind of surreal and mind-blowing. And I'm grateful for you guys for facilitating some of those connections and giving me the opportunity to work with you and to do all that. And I'm realizing I'm rambling, so I will let you ask
I think that's really what it's all about. I mean, it's no secret that early on we were an all volunteer staff, and that also included the artists who donated their incredible work every single week, so we could continue to try to grow and figure out a way to make this business viable and all that stuff. And I'm a huge believer in the right place at the right time, destiny aspect of it all. And the fact, again, that you came in at a real turning point for us, had these things kind of brewing on the back burner for your personal work with movies and posters, and it just perfectly fell into place to the point where you just have to look at it as, well, this is so meant to be. This is absolutely meant to be. And some of my favorite memories on the lot, are the guests just gushing over your work. Whenever somebody from the team can get up in the front of the line and have that moment, it's just amazing to see that appreciation cross over to what I know is our heroes.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. The moments I've been able to introduce you to the celeb that you have featured in the poster for that weekend, or the banner art for that weekend, how excited they get to meet the person who makes them look so good. And there's also, I was at the RetroCon convention recently, and Kelly Maroney was there, and she was still using the 8x10 you had created for her for Night of the Comet. Talk about that, because that was an interesting situation, how that all came about and what you did for her.
So she, for when you were doing the Night of the Comet event, the Catherine and Kelly Save the World Shopping Mall Last Starfighter Night of the Comet, there was that photo of Kelly holding the Uzi, and she's in the stills. She's squinting. She's sort of pursing her lips because she's I don't know what age she was at the time, maybe teenage, early 20s girl firing a an automatic weapon, I'd be squinting and blinking probably as well. So her face was totally natural for what she was doing, but when you turn that into a poster, it's not the best facial expression to kind of sell the character and the confidence of what she's doing. So I ended up, I forget what I actually did. Did I find another face and kind of just like photoshopped one face onto her other face? Or
It was
I don't even
magic.
remember. I don't even remember exactly what I did. It took me longer than it should have. I remember at one point saying, I can't be spending 3 hours on just making this work, but I kept kind of working at it until it looked as natural as I could try to make it look. And I just made her looking forward. I made her not squinting, pursing her lips, all that kind of stuff. And when she saw that, I think she reached out to me on either Instagram or Facebook and just said, "Thank you so much. It's been like 30 years or whatever it's been since Night of the Comet that she's been squinting in that photograph.
Finding these squinty photos, yeah.
And she's always wanted somebody to fix that. So she was super appreciative. And I unfortunately did not get to attend that event because I had to be in my sister's wedding. She's not listening.
Yes.
She's not listening to this. I know she won't. So I'll say that. But so I had to skip the event, and I didn't get to meet her until just a few months ago at a horror con. And I went up to her and I said, "Hey, I'm the guy from Mahoning that did the banner artwork for when you were there." And she was super excited to meet me. It was so nice. She was very gracious, and was very thankful that I finally turned her gaze to look forward, to look at camera, and stopped her from squinting. So I'm glad I was finally able to help her out. And I just love her from Night of the Comet and Chopping Mall. She's an absolute sweetheart, and it was so nice to kind of have that experience with her.
One of those shows where those girls came to play, man. Like they were running around the front lot, dancing around under the marquee. They were just the perfect guests, came to play. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to take up all your time. I want to give Mark an opportunity to ask some questions, but I'm curious, again, you are really good about planting some seeds in my brain. Any suggestions for next year?
All right, how much time you got? Here we go.
I always like to preface this with, if you could program any double feature or weekend at the Mahoning, regardless of how hard it might tank and kill the organization, what would you select? That's the little asterisk there. So that like fiscal responsibility does not come into play. But if you want to say this one might do well and this one might end it all, but we would have fun, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. I've realized over the years that I can kind of do that to you, Virgil. So I do try to drop those every so often in a text message or in a conversation. I think Mark once suggested just make the graphic and then Virgil will have to run it.
Yeah, you're like, look, I put all this time into
it. But Virgil, I want to ask you, do you know what I'm going to say? Because I have a feeling that you will, because there's one double feature that I've been pushing for several years and you have yet to do it.
There could be a couple options I could go with, but I'll let you drop it on the audience.
Okay. Sister Act double feature. You haven't done it yet.
My dude. I'm a chorus kid. Yeah.
I have an unusual love for that movie. I don't know why I watched it so much as a kid, but I still enjoy the Sister Act movies. A young Jennifer Love Hewitt is in the second one as well. So there's a good reason to kind of put that one out there.
Back in the habit, baby.
Kathy and Jimmy's doing cons. So you know what? Get her out and do the Sister Act double feature finally.
We could crush. Could you imagine that? We have like the local church bring out their nuns.
Nuns get in free.
Yeah. I'm sure we can, Mark, you can do some great nun puns in the advertising as well.
Secret feature, nuns on the run.
Boom.
Yeah. But no, seriously, well, many people have seen my fan poster for Jason and the Muppets Take Manhattan.
I was going to bring that up. So, that and your Shining poster are brilliant.
Oh, the Hallmark Shining poster, yeah.
Shining brightly.
One that I suggested a few years ago when Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman in the animated series, when he passed away, I'd love to see Batman Mask of the Phantasm on the Mahoning screen because we did Bakshi or Bust this year, and it'd be neat to kind of one year do like kind of keep that as a staple, like a not Disney but alternative animation night. And I think that movie, because it exists on 35 and not many of those 80s, 90s cartoons. I mean, maybe the G.I. Joe, maybe the Transformers movies, I guess we could probably get on 35, but you have such love for that animated series that I'd love to see a 35 millimeter print of Mask of the Phantasm.
So cool. Yeah.
I think I also suggested, I know this, I know our big bread and butter is the 35 millimeter, but it would be so much fun to do a Snick night, a Saturday night Nickelodeon
Talk
night
about
where
right
we
up
just,
my alley with the generational fandom,
yeah, like we do the VHS fest, nobody complains that it's not 35 that weekend. Just do a Saturday night, run Clarissa, Pete and Pete, all that, and then you got to end the night with some. You got to end the night with some Are You Afraid of the Dark?
That's right. Bring out the orange couch. Boom.
Here's another one. I don't even know if I mentioned this one for you. Marvel Misfires.
Ooh.
So Marvel has sort of they sort of stumbled a little bit.
Captain America,
a little bit,
or Captain America,
Captain America,
Punisher,
Howard the Duck, Dolph Lundgren, Punisher. Marvel sort of stumbled in the MCU the last few years. It maybe would have been better to hit that back when Infinity War, Endgame were really popular. But oh, you want Marvel movies? Here's some Marvel movies for you.
Well, we did. Speaking of Dolph Lundgren and Howard the Duck, we did a show. I think we only ever did it once, called Second Chance Weekend, and it was movies that failed initially, and we were giving them a second chance. And it was Howard the Duck and Masters of the Universe, and it did really poorly because but the prints were in excellent condition because nobody has touched those since they came out. But you could do it as a Second Chance Weekend Marvel edition.
Yes,
I think that Punisher has a following now. The Captain America, I don't think ever has really caught on, but it's a really interesting idea. It's the Mahoning approach to Marvel, certainly.
Yes. That Punisher movie is hard to find in the U.S. I don't know if it's gotten a Blu-ray release in the U.S. I think you have to import it as well. So there would be some exclusivity to that as well if you would run the Dolph Lundgren Punisher along with any of those other hey kids, those of you who in this younger generation have enjoyed this wonderful run of comic book movies, this is what us 80s and 90s kids had to grow up with, for our comic book movie fix. You don't understand. You have an embarrassment of riches now. And I remember renting the Captain America Punisher or Captain America Albert Pyun movie and being like, well, okay, I mean, I guess this is the Captain America movie.
Isn't he kind of not Captain America through most of that movie? I just remember driving around in a pickup truck for the most part.
Yeah, he steals Ned Beatty's car a bunch of times. That's the thing that he does to kind of get around.
Does he have bizarre. A shield? He doesn't have a shield, but he steals Ned Beatty's car at least 3 times.
No, he has the shield and he has rubber ears because the mask. It was weird. I don't know why they instead of cutting holes to let his ears go through, they just made rubber flesh-colored ears on the sides. It's perfect for the Mahoning. It's one of those. He was portrayed
weird... by Matt Salinger, son of Catcher in the Rye author J.D. Salinger. And if he played the Fantastic Four movie that never got released after that, that would be an unholy triple feature.
I think Marvel Misfires is the perfect, banner that we do. And we just, the stuff they tried that just didn't quite work. Some other dream ideas. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark with Elvira.
Yes.
Trey Parker, Matt Stone event. South Park the movie. Cannibal, Orgasmo, Team America.
All day.
Mike Judge, Office Space, Beavis and Butthead. And I know it's, Mark, you're probably going to say too new. And
let me get it out of the way. Too new. Okay, go ahead.
And they're not good movies. I know this. But I really want to see a Mystery Machine photo op on the lot. So Scooby-Doo 1 and 2 from the early 2000s.
I know the movies aren't good. That Lillard Palooza. That would be the way to work it in. Sure.
See, I just look at these all as nights that I don't have to worry about driving to Pennsylvania. So that's it saves me gas money.
Absolutely. Just put Andrew in charge of the program.
Start working on the posters and make them really good. And then it's guilting Virgil even more. I put 75 hours into these things.
Absolutely. Okay, well, you're lucky you don't pay by the hour. On that note, I always spend probably so many more hours than I have to, but it's just such a labor of love. I really do enjoy doing it. And you guys give me such fun ideas that I'm just like, how can I not make this as fun as I can make it for the banner? There's been some fun ones you've thrown me. The Freddy with the birthday cake was a fun one this year.
Yes. And beyond the
some of them?
graphics, like I gotta say, you're a perfect person to bounce ideas off of. There's been so many times where I'll just pitch an idea in the graphics chat without even having a title, and we'll massage it out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, well, you were part
I,
of
I
those heated, very furrowed brow discussions of what we should call the double feature of Hocus Pocus and Teen Witch. We were all
Yes.
standing
yes.
there going,
Mhm.
"Witch, please." Hex, yeah. What should it? And like we were, it was
Yeah.
like we were trying to talk about whether we were going to solve Mideast peace issues, and we were talking
Yeah.
about whether
Mhm.
Witch, please was a good title or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you guys give me the opportunity to do that too. Thank you for always including me in that. I never want to overstep my bounds or tell you how to program your events. That's not my job, but I've appreciated that over the last, year or two, you've given me more input on that
No,
and
I
given
love it. I
me
mean, that's such a part of it, like the curation here, it's like I bounce ideas off of so many different people to get their specific input on it. Mark is the first person I go to with every idea, just to be like, am I
Mm.
crazy or not?
And then I go, too new. And he rolls his eyes and he's like, yeah, I know, but
Well, I mean, this might be too lewd for the podcast, but do you remember what I was really pushing for the Kevin Bacon double feature and Mark wouldn't run with it?
That's right, the
what was
making
it?
bacon.
I didn't say I love
You-
that idea.
Virgil got back to me and he said Mark doesn't want to put the idea of two pigs going at it
In
in
people's
people's
mind.
mind. And I said, Mark, what? Mark's a prude. Don't listen to him. Do making bacon. But to Mark's credit, he came up with the much better bacon bits. It's much more palatable for a wider audience. It
Yes.
doesn't make you envision two pigs.
It can still
making
make you
bacon.
envision that scene in what was that movie that he did where he was in the shower?
Hollow Man? Oh, Wild Thing.
Things. Wild
Yeah,
Things. Yeah.
it makes you think of that scene in Wild Things. Bacon bits could be referring to a part of Kevin Bacon. So
That's right.
The crude is still
I-
there. It's just not
I totally
two
forgot
pigs
about.
banging.
I totally forgot about that scene in Wild Things. I usually think of other scenes from Wild Things, but that's just me. Well, and I am a little bummed though that you did let me put it on the graphic for the Freddy's 40 event, but you never said it on the radio before the event. The Lordy Freddy's 40.
That
But
is
you
really
gotta
good.
say it. You gotta say it in a Pennsylvania Dutch. You got Lordy Freddy's 40. You gotta like that was sort of how I envisioned it being read.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I really do appreciate the input you've let me have on the events and the freedom to just go wild with the graphics. And like I said, I appreciate so much that you trust that I'm gonna come back with something that honestly, the thing I love the most is that I don't think in 3 years we've been doing this, you've ever given me a design note. We've had changes as far as, okay, this guest got added in or this print fell through, so we've got to change that. And that's made some aesthetic changes, but you've never said this isn't good enough or change this or make it this color. And I just really appreciate that level of trust because it can be aggravating as a designer to have people who
Know nothing about design telling you to do stuff.
don't have the background in design, and it's like, well, then if you're going to dictate everything, what are you coming to me for? It's and I appreciate that you guys always give me that wide range to just play, and I think that's why the graphics, not to toot my own horn, have come out the way they have, because we just have this great team mentality of everybody kind of bounces ideas off of each other, and
Absolutely.
and it's always fun. Like what I love about your stuff is that it gets to be over the top. It gets to be crazy. Everything has like these big 3D text title treatments that pop out at you. And, other projects that I work on sometimes have to be a little bit more subtle or a little bit more subdued. And the Mahoning, because it's a drive-in and it's sort of this alternative, as you guys say, alternative drive-in, it's just got this sort of punk rock vibe that we're having fun and check this stuff out, and I can go wild with each graphic, and I always love that.
Oh, it's so much fun. Mark, did you have a question for Andrew before we cut him off?
Before we get cut off. Yeah, bang. Not a lot. It's just two super simple things. What would you say is or are among your favorite Mahoning shows that you have attended?
So the one that always stands out was from this season, and you probably know what I'm going to say. It was Clue, because I've never. First off, the Big Kids store did that awesome scavenger hunt with all the weapons from the Clue game that you had to like search the lot for. And was that the first one they've done?
First one they did. That was that one.
And and it just like my kids loved running around the lot finding the weapons. Geek Boy Press Louie had that awesome 1+2+2+1 shirt. And I've never gotten to see that movie with an audience. And seeing it with an audience that all came to play and all knew the movie, you guys found an awesome print from Paramount that I think Rob said was done in like 2008. So it was a later print. It wasn't an 85 print. So it had the 3 endings on it and it looked pristine. It was just so neat to sit there and watch this movie that I love with an audience who's all laughing at the right moments and everything like that. That was one of my favorites. But to bring it back around to my talk about, with my childhood growing up at drive-ins and stuff like that, last year's Universal Monsters, it was just my son and I, and he was 5 last year at the time. And it just worked out that I was supposed to come with a group of people, didn't work out, ended up being my son and I. And I just have this vivid memory of sitting there as you guys were doing the Halloween costume contest on screen, and you were telling everybody to like clap and cheer for each contestant. I just remember looking over at my son, and he just had the biggest smile on his face, and he was clapping, he was cheering for each person. And I thought of watching The Lion King at Shankweiler's with my dad when I was a kid. And just like, I'm so grateful to have this experience where I can kind of have this moment with him now, but pass this thing on to him and give him the same love of the drive-in. And that was just such a neat moment with him. And hopefully one that he remembers too, because I know I'll always remember just the smile on his face and how much fun he was having. So, and that's what the drive-in does for you guys. So I really appreciate it.
It's so incredibly beautiful, the fact that you get to share it with your family, with your friends, and it's really become, and I say this all the time, it's not hard to fall into this lifestyle, but it's become a lifestyle for a lot of us. And the people that support our creativity, the people that support these shows every single week, it is such a connection that it's hard to kind of put into words. But we thank you endlessly for everything that you do and have done for us. And I just know, the audience appreciates it as well. It seems to be an endless flow and people connecting the dots now to, oh, this is the name of the artist.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing me on board, and there's everything you've done for me and the connections you helped me make and the audience that you've been able to connect me with, because it's just been great. And I've made a lot of great friends up on the lot, and yeah, thank you.
I'm so excited to see what the future brings for you, my friend, as I'm sure many of our listeners share that thought as well. We will see you on the lot very, very soon, I'm sure. And if you guys are out and about, if you love Andrew's artwork, why don't you let them know where they can find you on the social medias?
So my main social media is Instagram at kern.creative.design. Helps you find it if you put those periods in there. I'm also on Facebook, Andrew L. Kern, but I'm not as active on Facebook. Instagram's kind of my main method.
It's a visual platform,
getting out there. So, yeah, it's just much better suited to putting up artwork as opposed to the rantings of your crazy aunt and uncle that Facebook seems to have has sort of become. Instagram's just a little bit more tailored for what I do. So that's where you can find me, Kern Creative Design on Instagram. And if you see me on the lot, come over and say hello. Always happy to make a new friend. I will be the chubby bearded guy on the lot, if that helps narrow it down.
That's an also wear a black t-shirt with horror stuff on the front, because that might whittle it down a little bit.
Yep. So you will easily be able to pick me out of the crowd.
People are coming up to me and being like, Andrew? Yo, we love you so much, buddy. Give our love to the family, and I can't wait for the future adventures with you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for asking me to do this. And hopefully not the last time. I'll come back again, when you get the analytics and find this was your lowest rated episode. And Insomnia Institutes are actually asking you for copies of this because it's curing people's inability to sleep. I'll come back anytime. This was fun. I always enjoyed chatting with you guys. Yeah, I feel like I found my people, with the Mahoning, and I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing me on board.
You're the best. All right, I think that does it for us. Jeff, on that note, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.